Hello and welcome to the 168th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a bubble screen across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
What's up, guys? It's a senior night tomorrow down at the Hillwood High School, playing Hillsboro, the Burros, the homeless Burros, I should say, because their stadium is being renovated. And we are hosting them for senior night. It'll be a great matchup. Hopefully we have improved enough to give them a run. Last year was a little rough. Drum roll, please. 62-0 was the final score last year. And that was the halftime score. So that's even scarier. So I hope we can only go up from here. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the show. And, it's finally fall weather. And I hope all the people in Panama City, including my family who decided to ride out the hurricane, are safe. And so just wanted to throw that out there as well. Hurricane Michael is pounding the Gulf Coast as we speak right now. And, I just hope my family's okay.
Okay, well, we've lost Josh due to a power outage in the city of Chicago. So hopefully his hamster will get back on the wheel soon. But in the meantime, Coach, let's get kicked off with some quick slants. I'll throw it out to you first. A couple undercards in the SEC this weekend. Yeah,
some interesting, intriguing matchups. One that we have added to spread formations that we'll talk about here in the capital city of Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, they take on Auburn down at Jordan Air. Auburn looking to bounce back. Auburn's been struggling mightily lately. They need to shore up some things on the offensive line. Jarrett Stidham needs to get back into a rhythm. Defense needs to come back to form. And what better way to do it than against Tennessee? Tennessee just they're the bad news bears this year. Anything negative that could have happened to Tennessee has happened. There was the fumble 6 where they made a perfect defensive play, strip stacked the quarterback, and tight end Isaac Nana picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. Week before against Florida, they run a trick play, fumbles it to the back of the end zone, touchback. Ball goes over to Florida. They turn it over 6 times. So anything that will go wrong for Tennessee. They're hoping they can end their conference skid. I think they're at 0-10 for their last 10 SEC games. So look to bounce back against a struggling Auburn. So this will be somebody's wake-up call. Another interesting matchup is Texas A&M and South Carolina. Texas A&M coming off a huge win, and normally we wouldn't say this about a game versus Kentucky, but it was a huge win for A&M because, they've kind of, I wouldn't call it their signature win, but that was kind of their first big game win in the Jimbo Fisher era. Kellen Mond just continues to look stellar. 107 of 177 passes, almost 1,450 yards, 9 touchdowns. The Texas A&M offense is picking up right where it left off. South Carolina, again, they won I don't even know what you described that game last week. It was a mess. They won a mess. They just came out with more points than Missouri last week in that just disgusting mess. But they play at Williams-Brice in Columbia. A&M's favored by 2. That'll be an interesting game there. Again, we will preview that in spread formations as well.
We don't have to preview it anymore. You just gave it to us.
Well, we're gonna actually make our picks. So I just kind of told you about it. So I kind of gave you the cheat sheet so you could make your picks. Missouri is traveling down to Bryant-Denny. They're taking on Bama. Missouri will hopefully be the first team to prevent Bama from scoring over 40 points and staying within 4 touchdowns. Tua Tagovailoa, man, that guy's struggling. He is, I would say, just kidding. Tua is probably he's one of the most exciting quarterbacks to watch in this conference. I'm sure there's some flaw you could pick out. I just don't know what it is yet. He's on fire, to say the least. Jerry Jeudy has been his biggest beneficiary. Bright spot for Missouri, of course, is Larry Roundtree. And then this matchup features, I guess, another battle of quarterbacks. Two great quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa, the young phenom, and Drew Lock, who is a lock to be an NFL first rounder. So that'll be fun as well. And then Ole Miss, well, they're playing this weekend as well. We'll see what they can do. Jordan Ta'amu, he's scoring some points. So they have a game somewhere against somebody. I'm not sure who that is, but they're playing. So Ole Miss fans.
Speaking of Jordan Ta'amu, my question is, what is going on in the water out in Hawaii? Three of the best quarterbacks in college football, Ta'amu, Tagovailoa, and Mackenzie Milton from UCF, all Hawaiian Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess those Samoans and Hawaiians can sling the rock. And what's crazy is that Tagovailoa's brother is committed to Alabama. Obviously, they live in Alabama now, so that he's not he's technically an Alabaman now, an Alabamian.
Alabamian, I believe.
An Alabamite. Is that right? Anyway.
Something like that.
But I mean, yeah, it's crazy. These Hawaiian quarterbacks are just, I don't know what it is. Like they just got superior arm talent. They're just good. They're just really good. They're better than the Southern California quarterbacks. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of your look around the SEC. We actually had some Tuesday night football. And that was actually pretty fun. We got to see some Fun Belt action, but depending on how you look at it, it was either really fun or it was really bad. And if you're Arkansas State, it was really bad. They were on the wrong end of a 35-9 thrashing. Justice Hansen had 3 interceptions, just struggle all day long, and Appalachian State just showed that they were just a dominant team.
Yeah, App State looked really good on that one. All right, well, we believe he's back now. That would be our third amigo in the second city.
Back in the
very bizarre night so far. So Chicago, we not facing obviously what the good people of Florida are, but we've had just driving rain on and off all day. I get back from work. Everything in my apartment's turned off. So at some point during the day, we had a blackout. And then just now, as I was logging on the computer, as we were starting our show, midway through your introduction, Matt, everything went off in Chicago. I looked outside. It was like my whole block, my whole apartment building, the apartment building next door. Craziness. And just now, the lights flickered back on. So I don't know what's going on, but to be safe, I'll stay on my phone. So if I sound a little different, it's because I'm mobile and not at my nice microphone and my computer and all that.
All right. Well, you're hitting the road for Bloomington, Indiana this weekend, Josh. So I know
I am.
Your first trip down there to Memorial Stadium.
Very first one. I'm excited for it. They've done a lot of renovations to it. It looks like a pretty nice stadium nowadays. Big game for both teams as they try and get to 5 wins. Obviously, Iowa has a touch easier schedule based on the division. So for Indiana, this is a big game for them as they try and make a bowl. But another Big Ten game that really caught my eye was Purdue heading to Champaign. Illinois got that win against Rutgers. They got off the Schneid in conference play. They hadn't won the game in quite a while since they went 0-9 last year. But they picked up the win against Rutgers. They are now 3-2. There's still probably a big long shot to make a bowl game, but getting to a 4th victory would be big for them. As for Purdue, they start out the season mighty ugly, but a win on Saturday gets them actually back to 500 ball 3-3, and they have a little bit of a manageable schedule from here on out. So a couple teams down there looking for a bowl game, and then obviously Indiana and Iowa, a little bit bigger implications. But fun day in the Big Ten undercards.
All right. Well, I want to quickly, from my slant, talk about a game out there in the Pac-12. And for those of you who can't get enough Pac-12 After Dark action, there's a good one actually Friday night in Salt Lake before the big one Saturday night. So in this one, Utah returns home after upsetting Stanford last week. They're going to take on an Arizona squad who forced Cal into 4 turnovers in their last game en route to a 24-17 victory, despite being outgained by the Bears by over 200 yards. I think that Utah should be able to bottle up Khalil Tate, J.J. Taylor, and the rest of the Wildcat rushing attack. The Utes are third in the country in rush defense. One of the things I would be concerned about if I was an Arizona fan was the fact that Arizona can't really hold on to the ball. And I'm not talking turnovers. I'm talking time of possession. They're 116th in the country in that category. You're not going to score if you're not holding the ball. I mean, obviously, with some of these up-tempo attacks, you're not holding the ball as long as Navy or triple option team, something like that. But still, 116th in the country is not good. Utah should be able to win this one. But if their offense is uneven, like it has been many times throughout the season, and if Arizona is able to force turnovers like they were able to do against Cal, it'll be definitely a one-score game. But I've got my faith squarely set in the Utes. Like I've said a million times, I picked Utah to win the South before the year started. I'm still sticking with that one. Glad they got the win at Stanford last week. Josh, you picked Arizona at the beginning of the season to win the South. Do you think they could win this matchup there in Utah?
Nah, not with that Utah defense. They're flying all over the field, and they got a little spark of offense against Stanford. If they can string together a couple weeks of offense, they might be able to catch those red-hot Colorado Buffaloes. We'll see.
All right. Well, speaking of offense, it's time for the pop quiz. So take out your number 2 pencils, grab your blue books, and listen carefully. So Alabama has scored at least 40 points in 6 consecutive games to start the year. If they are to do so again this weekend against Mizzou, they will become the 21st team since 1980 to score 40 or more points in 7 consecutive games. So, gentlemen, your job is to name those 20 teams. Side note, some of these teams have done it more than once, and these consecutive game streaks do include bowl games. So, Josh, I will throw it out to you first. Name a team that has scored 40 points in at least 7 straight contests since 1980.
Well, Iowa felt way too obvious, so I'm not going to go with them. I'm going to say that some of those great Chip Kelly offenses up at Oregon have done it.
Oregon is about as good a guess as you're going to get. They have done it 5 separate times in this time span. The longest one, they actually hold the record for most consecutive games scoring 40 points. They did it 13 times in a row between November of 2011 and November of 2012. Coach.
Well, along those lines, it seemed that Temple was way too obvious. So I'm going to go with a much riskier guess and say Miami.
Miami? Which Miami?
The U.
Sorry, Coach, that is incorrect.
The
Miami?
U?
The U. I'm sorry. They always had a great defense. Never net quite the high scoring offense.
So should I take the softball pitch and go with Miami of Ohio?
That was kind of a trick from me too, because they also did not qualify.
Oh. Well,
we both got a strike.
Oh yeah, that feels.
No, I'm not going to count that against you, Josh.
Okay, well, because my real guess was going to be, go back after that Pac-12 conference. I'm going to take some of those Pete Carroll USC teams, and I think they might have done it when they had Reggie Bush, especially.
Sorry, they did not accomplish that feat.
Dang.
1 strike each. Coach, you're up.
All right.
There's got to be an Alabama team in there somewhere that did it, besides this year's.
Nope, there is not. 2 strikes, Coach. Josh, you're up.
He gets a little bit of a bad rap for scheduling easy, so I'm going to say that the Pirate has done it, and I think he will have done it with his first tenure down at Texas Tech.
Texas Tech is correct. They did it 7 consecutive games back from 2006 to 2007. And I actually need to make a correction on my sheet. I wrote down, for some reason, Southern California and not USC. So when I was looking for USC, I didn't see USC. USC is actually correct.
Oh.
So, Josh, you've been negated back to 0 strikes.
So I have the imaginary strike for Miami of Ohio and the imaginary strike for USC. I like this. This is a fun way to take a tap.
Coach, you're up.
All these accommodations. Oh, geez. Well, here it is for the strikeout. It's got to be Oklahoma.
Nice one.
2008.
2008 Oklahoma is correct. They had 7 consecutive games from middle of October through the early December of that season.
Remember Bedlam that year was like the first to 60 was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good C&I single.
Hey, that's all you needed.
That's all I needed.
Speaking of Bedlam, I'm just going to head down the road from Norman to Stillwater and think that a certain middle-aged coach might have gotten his team to do this a few times.
So Oklahoma State is correct. And Mike Gundy being associated with the team is correct. But this was back when he was the quarterback, gentlemen.
So he did it when he was a middle-aged kid.
Yeah, pretty much. 1988, 7 consecutive games.
Ooh.
I tend to remember that team being a little bit more run-heavy.
Burris Sunders.
Yeah, they had this running back.
Yeah, he was okay.
He was good. He was decent.
Yeah, he was okay.
He had a couple of moves, maybe. He might have broken a couple of tackles.
Coach.
All right. I think the Mark Richt era Bulldogs are way too up and down to have done it. Jim Donnan definitely didn't do it, and Ray Goff definitely didn't do it.
Ray who?
Goof. And then Dooley, I think his only chance of doing it would have been in 1980, and he definitely didn't do it then, probably. So I'm going to go with Florida State.
Florida State would be a good guess. Florida State has done it twice, once in 95 and once in 2013.
All right. There you go.
In 2013, in fact, they did it for 11 consecutive games.
I would have guessed the 99 season if you had me do a year.
Well, fortunately, I didn't.
Well,
Josh.
I'm going to stay in the Sunshine State and just go over to a dang nabbit. My visor got all tangled up, but we run up the score. We had some fun and gun. I'm going to go with Spurrier. He did it with Florida. How about that?
Florida is correct, but not with Spurrier, with Coach Urban Meyer, 2008, 7 consecutive games.
Hey, wrong coach, but the question was about the program, so I'll take it. It could have been Ron Zook. I wouldn't have minded.
I don't know if Ron Zook scored 40 points in his career, the Florida coach.
He did once because they played Georgia 4 times in his career.
He took Illinois to a BCS bowl game.
Juice loose. The juice is loose.
Coach, you're up.
Oh, boy. All right. Let's see. Staying in the conference, I'm going to say Old Mississippi.
Coach, sorry, I'm sending you back to the Pine. Ole Miss is incorrect.
Ooh.
All right, Josh, you've already won. Do you have any other quickly off the top of your head?
Well, some of those Colt McCoy Texas teams might have been able to do it.
Texas is correct.
I'm wondering if, thanks to Big 12 defenses, if the RG3 Baylor teams might have done it.
Baylor, yes. Baylor actually appears on this list 3 times.
Ooh. Another team that crossed my mind, but I think that he probably hasn't been there long enough to do this. I was thinking about going to the Pirate for a second time with Washington State.
Wazoo, no, they haven't done that quite yet. Teams you missed.
The Wazoo guest also, the reason I included it on my list was just kind of hedging my bets that Mike Price had a pretty good offense also with a few quarterbacks out there. So,
with Drew bled so much he needed a blood transfusion.
And Ryan Leaf.
Ryan Leaf.
So, all right, the ones you guys missed. Number 2, actually tied with Oregon for 13 consecutive games for the most. Texas A&M with Johnny Football. Josh mentioned Texas. Florida State was mentioned by Coach. Western Kentucky, back in 2016, they did it for 10 consecutive games. Guys, you missed Hawaii June Jones era, they had 2 separate 9-game streaks in which they scored 40 consecutive points. Oregon's been mentioned. Bowling Green back in 2004 and 2005 did it for 9 consecutive games. BYU in 1996.
I wasn't going to get that one.
Josh, your beloved Tulane team of 1998.
Nice.
Boise State 3 separate times, once in 2002, once in 2009, once in 2010.
He's a good Boise.
Louisville back in 2004.
Ooh.
Houston in 2011. Marshall in 2014. TCU 2015. Louisville again in 2005. And finally, Louisiana Tech in 2012. Good job. Josh, you get a B+. Coach, we're going to give you a gentleman's C on that one.
That was you barely passed C.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten 3 in a row.
I believe that's correct.
Which I think might be my longest streak. Normally Coach is racking up the wins, but.
All right. Well, guys, let's hit it's time to hit the deep roots. So we will start where College Game Day is going to be this weekend, and that is Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Badgers are coming into the big house, but they're going to be down a couple of key defenders on an already suspect defensive unit. So, Josh, is Michigan going to be able to capitalize on this opportunity?
I think they will, because we saw Nebraska put up over 500 yards and have over 20 points. So the points are out there. Now, I'm not saying that Michigan will take advantage of it to such a point that they win the game, because Wisconsin still has a pretty good running game, still have a serviceable passing game. It's probably the best offense that Michigan has faced since Notre Dame, which obviously had Wimbush, so it wasn't even as good a offensive team yet. So it's weird to say this for Wisconsin, but I think that they, in order to win, will have to win it in a shootout, which is bizarre to say for these two teams.
Well, yeah, and Coach, I think that's going to be particularly difficult for Wisconsin to do, considering that Michigan has the number 1 rush defense in the country. They're only giving up they have the number 6 rush defense in the country. They're only giving up 96.5 yards per game on the ground. Yeah,
it's insane. They're extremely stingy. They lead all of FBS with 3.69 yards allowed per play, no matter what the play is. And they're averaging only giving up 230.5 yards per game. So, they're just stingy all around, not just against the run, but just all around. You have Chase Winovich and Devin Bush coming in. Get this percentage here. They're sacking the opposing quarterbacks on a 12.8% of all dropbacks, which is good.
That's astounding.
5th in all of FBS. So, it's insane how good they're playing, and they're just loaded with talent. Michigan is a weird team. They're so loaded, but they just underachieve. I guess it's true. You really do take on the personality of your head coach, because Jim Harbaugh is kind of a weird dude, and so Michigan's kind of a weird team in which they don't always play like you think they're going to play. Just when you're down on them, bam, here they go. They look like they could beat the Cleveland Browns, and then when they go up against Rutgers, it's a tight ball game. So I don't understand it. This year they've looked the peaks and valleys have been a little bit more even. I want to talk about Shea Patterson. He's second in the Big Ten in passer rating and completion percentage. He's almost 70%. He's third in yards per attempt, 8.6, and he's also third in touchdown passes at 10. His ratio is 10-3 with TDs and interceptions. Here's the thing to watch for in this game. Michigan might actually, on offense, they're going to go to the air a lot. If they haven't already so far this year, they're going to go to the air maybe even more so than usual, because you guys, Matt, you especially know that there's been some injuries in the Badger secondary, and that's never good. That's never a good thing when you're facing a passing attack as good as the one led by Shea Patterson in the Michigan.
Well, also, Badger starting free safety Scott Nelson is out for the first half of the game after a targeting penalty last week.
Yes, absolutely, and he adds to it as well. So, Matt, this is one of those matchups where, on paper, it really is stacked heavily against Wisconsin. But, being that this is a Big Ten rivalry game, it's a conference game, and these two teams don't like each other. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the.
I wouldn't really consider it a rivalry game. Just I think Wisconsin's rivals as Minnesota and Iowa.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's games that Georgia
and Nebraska. I mean, the Freedom.
Oh God, don't even get me started on that stupid trophy.
Yeah, I mean, just because there's no trophy involved doesn't mean it's not a rivalry. I mean, there's not really Georgia South Carolina is not really considered a rivalry, but to some fans it is a rivalry. To some fans it is. I don't think there's.
Would those fans be exclusively South Carolina fans?
Yeah, and those Georgia fans that live in the eastern part of the state. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like an official rivalry, but these two teams don't like each other, so it's going to be heavily competitive, and Wisconsin's going to come out firing on all cylinders. And anytime you have JTT or Jonathan Taylor touchdown, you're in good shape. So, it's going to be interesting to see what Rashawn Gary, Chase Winovich, and Devin Bush, what they do against this Wisconsin offense, and what this Wisconsin offense does to kind of combat such a great defensive front. How creative can they be and get yardage, chew up clock, and really just kind of play field position and special teams. If they can grind the tempo of the game way down, I think that if this game gets ugly, Wisconsin has the edge. All right, but this game could go. I think honestly, this game's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be really ugly and Wisconsin wins, or it's going to be just people flying around, and if it turns into a speed game, Michigan's going to have the upper hand.
Yeah, because Michigan has the better athletes.
Yes.
I'm most interested in seeing the chess match between Michigan defensive coordinator Don Brown and Wisconsin head coach Paul Chryst in terms of how Wisconsin tries to attack that very stout Michigan defense. One of the things that they did against Iowa was they lined up with up to 8 offensive linemen at once on the field and just ran it down their throats. And I think that is, might be the best method of attacking this Michigan team, considering that obviously Wisconsin's, talent and depth is there at the offensive line position more so than anywhere else. Anyhow, we need to move on, and we are going to hit the road to Death Valley on Saturday night. It's going to be a great matchup between the Bayou Bengals and Coach's Dogs. LSU licking their wounds after they lost in the swamp last weekend. And now, if I'm in Coach, if I'm in your seat, I'm actually a little bit more worried about this game now than I would have been if LSU had beaten Florida. Tigers have their backs against the wall, and they will have, shall we say, a bit of a vocal crowd there on Saturday night. Coach, how do you feel going into this one?
Well, first of all, it wouldn't matter if LSU was 0-6 coming into this game. Their crowd's still going to be raucous. It doesn't matter. If there's a home game in Baton Rouge, their crowd is up for it.
Especially Saturday night.
But this one's the 2:30 Central Time kickoff. So
is it? I thought it was a night game for some reason.
It's the 2:30 CBS game. It's the number one game. But still, I mean, honestly, I don't think this LSU team's going to do something drastically different because they lost last week. I think they're going to still kind of play at the level they were going to play at regardless. They're not – I don't think they're one of those teams that really ebbs and flows based on winning or losing. So, I agree it's a must-win, but they were going to come out swinging anyway because, if you're trying to get in the college football playoff, every game's a must-win. So I think that kind of goes out the window. But – honestly, if they can find a way to keep gelling that offensive line, I've really been impressed of how they've kind of handled and managed this 2 quarterback system. I didn't think it would work, but Justin Fields actually comes in and gives a pretty good spark to the Georgia offense. And yeah, he ain't ready to be the full-time starter yet, because I just don't think he's mastered the college level passing yet. I think it's still moving too fast for him, but he comes in and he's a nice little change of pace for Georgia, and I think that's good how they're managing him. I've been thoroughly impressed with the run game with DeAndre Swift and Elijah Holyfield, and even Brian Harry getting in the mix defensively. Ironically enough, going to have to figure out a way to stop the run. Roquan moving on to the NFL can't be the reason you all of a sudden can't stop the run. Monty Rice, Tyler Clark, Julian Rochester, Jonathan Ledbetter, those guys are perfectly capable of stopping the run. The secondary is going to have to come up with some big plays. DeAndre Baker is going to have to continue doing what he's doing. J.R. Reed going to have to continue doing what he's doing. And Tyson Campbell, the freshman sensation over there at corner, they're going to pick on him a lot. They've got their hands full with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's proved that he can be in that upper tier of SEC quarterbacks. And so it's going to be an extremely competitive game. It was going to be that way anyway. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere because, let's face it, these Cajuns really know how to party, and they're loud. They are loud. And they've been tailgating since yesterday.
Oh, I think that's being generous. I thought they were there ever since they got back from the swamp. I thought they just set up shop, right outside of.
They probably did. Would not shock me. They probably did. They're probably boiling their body weight in crawfish. But yeah, it's gonna be a tremendous game, and it's going to be a tight 60-minute physical slugfest.
Absolutely. Josh, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think Coach is being his usual diplomatic self when it comes to a Georgia opponent. I think it's going to be an interesting game for about a half, and then the more talented team, Georgia, the more impressive coaching staff, Georgia's, will pull away. And, yeah, that environment might keep LSU around a little bit, and maybe Burrows has a few nice passes to keep LSU involved, but Georgia's the better team, and there's kind of a feeling I have in the pit of my stomach that I think that this is the game that Kirby says to Jake, basically, hey, you got us to the playoffs a year ago. You're playing all 60. I think Jake Fromm plays the whole game, wins the big game on the road, and we don't see Justin Fields at all.
Ooh, I like that. That's an interesting call. All right, well, let's head up to a big one out in the Pac-12. The top two teams in that conference will face off on Saturday afternoon in Eugene. Washington coming in after a surprisingly competitive game with UCLA last weekend, while Oregon just got a week off after beating Cal 2 weeks ago. Josh, Washington's defense has been excellent so far this season, but they have not faced anyone like Justin Herbert yet. So can we expect to see the Huskies slow down that Duck offense?
Well, the way they're going to have to slow it down, I think, is actually hanging on to the ball. And this is a Washington team that's been very erratic with their offense in terms of they look a little bit at times like a teenager learning how to drive stick shift, where sometimes they get it into gear and it looks good, and then other times it's just been downright ugly. But I think Oregon is approaching that Chip Kelly level of fear, where the only way to slow them down is to not let them possess the ball. And if Washington has one of those offensive funk games, I don't think it necessarily matters how good that UW defense is, because Oregon's going to find a way to score 3 touchdowns. And it now becomes a question, can Jake Browning, can Myles Gaskin find 3 touchdowns themselves?
Coach?
So this is interesting because Washington is defensively they're talented. And like Josh said, that was a perfect analogy with a teenager driving a stick shift. I just got the mental image. It was priceless. But how do you stop an offense that's averaging 503 yards per game? And you got a guy like Justin Herbert coming off a bye week. And I mean, honestly, I just think that if Washington struggled with, or if they, I don't know how to say what happened with Auburn, ended up losing that game. But, I think it's going to be tough sledding as far as trying to stop it. So I think that Washington is going to find themselves in a shootout with Oregon. It's going to kind of be like a race to 50. Whoever gets to 50 first is going to win this game, because I don't see either of these defenses stopping each other just because they're so high octane and so tempo. And they're just so explosive that, I think it's going to be a track meet for the majority of this game. And it's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm interested to see what uniform combination Oregon comes out in. Maybe they go all highlighter yellow. They blind Washington. I almost called them Wisconsin.
I think they're going to go with the chrome helmets.
Yes, that would be.
I don't know. I have no idea actually.
But yeah, no. I mean, this is kind of a weird game to preview, just because Washington is just so up and down. They're just tough to predict. They have all this talent, but do they use it effectively? Do they always play smart? They find themselves, they bust coverages, they bust stunts, they give up big plays, sometimes they're careless with the ball, and sometimes they fly around, they hit you, and sometimes they hit big plays as well. So,
actually, Coach, I actually have some information here on what Oregon will be wearing this weekend.
Ooh, yeah,
they are going with the all green look.
All green. They've been
like bright, like lime green.
They've been committed to the color green this year.
Yeah, so they are. Okay. They're going with
all green. Green helmets, jerseys, pants, socks, shoes, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I can dig it. And
those yellows, though, those yellows that you love so much, they'll be wearing those week 13 at Oregon State.
Ooh, the highlighters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't wait till honestly speaking, not sarcastically, I can't wait to see when they're going to bust out the Stormtrooper uniforms.
Oh yeah, those will be fun.
Yeah,
all right.
Those are my favorites. Those are my favorite combo.
Those are the three really big games this weekend. Two other sort of lesser known matchups that I want to get to quickly. I want to start in the Big 12 because I think West Virginia has a really sneaky tough game. Even though they're up to 6th in the country in the polls, so far West Virginia's had a really soft schedule. As fans, we really missed out on what would have been a great matchup between the Mountaineers and North Carolina State. But that was hurricaned out a couple weeks back. So, Coach, what do the Cyclones need to do in order to pull off the upset at home here?
They need to get after Will Grier. They need to, just blitz and mix up their coverages. They need to win first and second down. They need to I saw a stat. I was doing some reading, and I saw a stat where if you get one tackle for loss, you have an 80% chance of killing that drive. 80% chance for that drive. So honestly, I also read. I was doing some defensive research because I'm trying to be a good coach and just kind of support my defensive guys, and and it was about Kirby Smart, so it was kind of like serving two purposes. I was just kind of interested in learning about kind of what his philosophies are, and also what could we do to help our defense at Hillwood. So, stunt the B gap was another concept that I learned. And, just mix up your coverages and try to play games with Will Grier. What they like to do is they run a lot of RPO stuff. And so if you can have somebody rob those RPO options, whether it's rob the seams on your slant RPOs or get your corners to show a certain coverage and then rob the fast screens and throw safeties over the top deep, when you're mixing your coverages up, maybe that's something that they could do to kind of disrupt what West Virginia likes to do. and that's that's going to be without a doubt. And of course, obviously, if you can make them one-dimensional, as I mentioned earlier, keep them behind the chains, cause them to be one-dimensional where there's no threat of run. That's another thing which you can do. And Iowa State has proven time in and time again this year that they can get it done. They can play some defense. They can fly around. They can tackle. They can get guys in space and tackle. And it's really kind of been fun to watch Iowa State. I kind of caught myself watching a team that I never thought in a million years that I would watch more than just let's flip to this game on a commercial break. I actually kind of stuck on their game a little bit last week. So they're a fun team to watch.
Yeah, Josh, and Iowa State last week also showed some offense.
Yeah, they did. And one of the keys for that game against Oklahoma State, in addition to having a really good passing day with over 300 passing yards, was they took advantage of Oklahoma State's mistakes. I know the turnover margin was equal at 2, but get those 2 takeaways, that was nice. Oklahoma State had 9 penalties. And why do I bring this up? Well, West Virginia's been winning, but their last 2 weeks really sloppy. Against Texas Tech, they had 12 penalties for 115 yards in that game. And then last week against Kansas, they got the win, but they had 4 giveaways. So how do you get upsets? Well, turnovers and penalties, and the more talented team shooting themselves in the foot. And so if West Virginia does that, they can find themselves on the wrong end of this one. And then I kind of wanted to pose this question to Coach, which is, what are the games on the schedule, Coach, that you look at and you go, okay, our kids are going to be engaged, and weeks that you go, okay, our kids are going to be checked out? What are some of the situations for being checked out?
Like our homecoming opponent, Glencliff. Okay. We knew without a shadow of a doubt, it didn't matter what we did. It didn't matter what they did. We were going to roll the score up on them. And we could just name the number we wanted. So we knew they were going to be checked out against that. The two teams that we know on our schedule were surefire wins. Were the ones we checked out.
They're checked out for surefire wins. Do you find that the teams checked out a little bit just before a bye week?
No, because this is we go into a bye week after this game, and we've been pretty in tune. But a 62-0 beatdown will do that to you.
Yeah,
you're trying to avenge that last season.
Well, because the reason I bring that up is
we've had a lot of revenge games, so we've been dialed in more so than any.
Well, the reason I asked that is because to me this looks like a little bit of a double checkout situation where West Virginia sort of feels like this is a team that they're going to blow out, and then they get their bye right after Iowa State.
I'm with you on the bye week thing, but West Virginia's watched film. Iowa State is not what Iowa State used to be. And if I'm West Virginia and I've watched film, I figure that out that, wait, we're not going to be able to push these guys around. So, I think I think the only chance of that would be because the bye week's next week and they're just looking forward to a break.
All right.
I don't think they're taking this one for granted at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Finally and quickly, it's a bit of a down weekend, major conference game. So I wanted to include Central Florida versus Memphis on our Deep Roots because even though we mention the Golden Knights nearly every show, we still don't give them enough love and the love they deserve. They have not missed a beat since bringing in an entirely new coaching staff under Josh Heupel. Josh, you've got Central Florida way up in your poll. So do you think that Memphis has any chance of knocking them off on Saturday?
I'm not sweating bullets, and just for frame of reference, how high up do I have them? I have them fourth.
Yeah.
In my latest poll. Here's the thing with Memphis: they're a well-coached team. They're a dangerous team, but they're a little bit like Washington in the flip side. It's not their offense that's having fits. It's been sometimes of their defense just kind of stuck in mud. They blew out Connecticut a week ago, but everyone does that. but the week before that, down at Tulane, they couldn't do anything against that option attack. They lost 40-24. Earlier in the season against Navy, struggled with that option attack, 22-21. I know Mackenzie Milton throws it around. I know Central Florida has a dangerous passing attack. But Mackenzie Milton is a very mobile quarterback. They love to do some of that RPO stuff. So while it's not the same sense of a triple option throwing you off, Central Florida does use tempo and play calling and have a mobile quarterback to do things where their plays have an element of option where Mackenzie Milton gets to decide what is he doing on this play. It's not a triple option, but it's a offense that has built-in characteristics of giving you a little bit of that improvisation and letting the players kind of choose how the thing goes. So I think this sets up nicely for Central Florida.
Coach?
Yeah. Norvell, to bolster what Josh is saying, Coach Norvell was quoted as saying they're probably playing even faster than what they did last year. Quote, their tempo is at warp speed. They're snapping the ball anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds after the previous play, which is extraordinary, end quote. So that just tells me that, they wear you down. They wear you out. They won't allow you to substitute. They won't allow you to do anything fancy, anything crazy. You have to kind of be forced to play base defense, because as soon as you get into something, as soon as you make a call, they're snapping the ball, and you can't look. You don't even have time to look over the sideline. You got to get set and let's rock and roll. We just got to go play base, and that plays right into Central Florida's hands, and it's probably the reason why they are sitting at averaging 574 yards per game, which is up from last year's 530. So Mackenzie Milton's is just killing it. Josh Heupel is killing it. And I think this is a much, much more I think the gap between these two teams is much wider than it was a year ago. Not to say Memphis is not competitive, because they'll be competitive. They're just going to – I think that UCF is on such a roll right now that, Memphis is going to look a lot worse than they actually are. And Memphis is a really good program. They're just not, I just think they're outmatched. They're not quite there yet. And I think they're outmatched in this one because UCF is just so efficient, just so good at what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely going to be looking forward to that UCF Cincinnati game later on in the season. All right, guys, time to hit our last segment, spread formations. And for that, we are bringing in a guest picker tonight in from Durham, North Carolina. It's friend of the show, Jens Herman.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Jens.
Waiting for my wheels up jet, but it never came. So my Toyota Camry did just fine.
All right. Yeah.
That's actually a trademark phrase. We now need to pay ESPN some money for saying wheels up.
Oh, gosh. Don't get me started on that. All right, guys. For the season, everyone out there knows it's not been the kindest to us. So let's hope that Jens is our good luck charm. We bring him in because he's here for homecoming at Vandy this weekend. The Commodores welcoming in the Gators, who are fresh off that big win over LSU last weekend. Jens, who do you like here?
I don't like anybody in this game, football-wise, but I'm going to go with Vanderbilt. Do I think they're going to win? No. I've seen enough Vanderbilt football in my lifetime to know that the likelihood of that happening is probably slim. But, yeah, they'll figure out a way to cover this spread.
All right. Josh.
What's the spread?
7, Florida.
That feels pretty insulting to a Florida team that's looks like a team that's got some mojo going with the Dan Mullen pulling trick plays out of the back of the playbook. I think Florida pulls away late to win by about 10-14.
All right, Coach.
Yeah, I think best case scenario is a push. I think it's going to be letdown city for about 3 quarters, where you're thinking, man, Florida better wake up. Because this is going to be a typical Florida Vanderbilt game. Florida's going to sleepwalk through the first 3.5 quarters, and they're going to wake up and pummel Vandy. And I think it's going to not be much different here. I think it's going to be you're going to sweat it, and then all of a sudden, boom, they win by 17-20.
Okay, so I'm taking Vanderbilt for 2 reasons. First of all,
sorry, Ashley.
I am married.
You don't want to sleep on the sofa.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to sleep on the sofa tonight. And secondly, this is a classic trap game. Coach, who does Florida play next week?
They play. Let me pull up their schedule.
World's largest outdoor cocktail party, my friend.
Oh, that's the big one against Georgia Tech.
It's in 2 weeks.
Is that in 2 weeks? I could have sworn it was next week.
Yeah,
well, it's their next game after Vanderbilt. They've got to bye.
Now, there's no rule that says you can't start drinking 2 weeks before a game starts.
I mean, what if you just never stop? So yeah. I think
they play that pesky BYE team.
So yeah, the BYE. I think this is a classic letdown spot for Florida. I think Vandy's going to keep it close, if not win it. We've got the biggest announcement, class of 2008 after party is where, Jens?
Losers Bar and Grill.
Losers is the grill?
Or Losers Bar.
Yeah, Losers Bar. I can't make this stuff up, folks. The after party for the football game is at a place called Losers. So
I sang karaoke there once with the guy who wrote Friends in Low Places.
Yeah, and you tried to kick him off the stage while you were singing that song.
I Heismaned him because he looked like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. I didn't know who the heck he was. Then he bought me a gin and tonic.
That was very nice of him.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's stick with some Floridian teams on the road for our next pick. Go to Tulsa, where the Golden Hurricane are hosting South Florida. Bulls giving 7 and the hook at Chapman Stadium. Jens, you got a lean on this one?
Honestly, I don't know much about either of these teams, but I know I don't like to bet against weather, especially with Hurricane Michael hitting the Southeast. So I'm going to go ahead and take Luke Skipper and the Golden Hurricane.
All right. Josh.
That's weird. Neither team's been very good against the spread this year. They're both 2-3. And initially, you look at South Florida's schedule and you see some games where they didn't really pass an eye test. They only beat Illinois by 6, East Carolina by 7. You're kind of wondering what's going on with that team. But Tulsa trending wrong direction after a moral victory against Texas where they only lost by 7. They lose by 9 to Arkansas State. And then these last 2 weeks, 14 at Temple. And then they got blown out by 15 with Houston. They're going the wrong direction. I think the Bulls find their gear and get it done in Golden Hurricane Stadium.
Coach.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go Bulls on parade here because, this game's not played anywhere near the Southeast. It's at Tulsa.
But it's still, the Tulsa are still the Golden Hurricane, man. I mean,
they are the Golden Hurricane. They both will be wearing gold helmets. That's the only similarity. Bulls on parade here. I think they get 7 and the hook.
All right. Josh, you talked about that Tulsa team, man. They are hot garbage right now. So I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. So I will also take South Florida. Next, Air Force travels to San Diego State in a big Mountain West game. Aztecs went up and won on the Smurf turf last week. They get to head home to face the Falcon squad that ran over, around, and through Navy last weekend. Jens, Aztecs giving 10 at home. What side are you on?
I'm taking it up to 11. The Aztecs don't have Juwan Washington, but they got my man Chase Jasmine.
Oh, yeah.
So they're going to win by 11.
All right. Jens on the Aztecs. Josh.
Aztecs have been good this year, but not their vintage great. And believe it or not, Air Force is averaging more yards than them. Air Force is averaging way more points than the Aztecs. Their defensive numbers are pretty similar. I love Rocky Long, and I talk up SDSU all the time. But I think the Falcons have found a few things out those last 2 weeks, giving Nevada fits in a narrow loss and then blowing out Navy. I think the Falcons hang around. I'm not sure they truly pull off the upset, but I have a hard time seeing them lose by more than 10 points.
Coach.
Josh, for once, we don't agree.
Ooh.
I think San Diego State, I think they're going to blow them out.
Ooh.
I like that, Coach. I like that because that's the pick I'm going with as well. Last week, I was a winner when I took Air Force, and you guys both took Navy. But looking at some of the numbers coming into this one, San Diego State, as opponents are averaging 1.96 yards per carry against them. That does not bode well for a rushing-based attack. I know they haven't faced anyone that runs quite like Air Force does, but still, anyone giving up less than 2 yards per carry is doing something right there on their rushing defense. So I will take San Diego State in this one, even though I don't feel great about it. Okay. Next, after taking down previously unbeaten Kentucky last weekend, Texas A&M gets to travel to Columbia to take on the Gamecocks. South Carolina 2-point dogs at home in this one. Jens, who are you taking?
I think this one's going to be a fun one. You got Jimbo Fisher and Will Muschamp facing each other. They won a natty together at LSU. They spent some time at Auburn together. They're good friends. I found out recently they even used to own a beach house together. So I think A&M starts fast and finishes fast. Take this one. And Jimbo's somehow going to become Muschamp's landlord.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, Josh, what do you think?
I tend to pick against Muschamp any opportunity I'm given, and normally that works out well, and so I will again this week, especially when you look at the rush defenses and the rush offenses. South Carolina, they need their rushing yards because they don't pass it all that much, so their rushing yards are critical for them to be balanced. A&M has an amazing rush defense. And on the flip side, we think of Muschamp and defense and all that. South Carolina's given up 194 rush yards per game. A&M is running the ball pretty well, over 220 yards per game for the Aggies. I think that A&M runs all over the field in Columbia.
Coach.
Well done, Josh. Well done. My prediction is the same as Apollo Creed when asked about what his prediction was for Rocky, and he said, pain. It's going to be a blowout, I think. Kellen Mond, Travion Williams, they're going to be too much. I don't trust Muschamp in a big game scenario unless he has the gully washer once in a lifetime Noah's Ark rainstorm behind him. I'm not sure he can win this game.
All right. Yeah, I originally was thinking about taking South Carolina. It looks like Jake Bentley's going to start this weekend at quarterback, but I don't know. It really doesn't matter because
he's playing defense.
Yeah, exactly. So as much as I hate doing it, give me the Aggies. All right. Steven Montez, Laviska Shenault, and the rest of Colorado's high-flying offense gets to take a trip to Southern California this weekend. They're going to pay a visit to the Coliseum. USC coming off of a bye week, which was desperately needed for this squad. They have not looked terribly impressive so far this year. Still, Trojans touchdown favorite at home. Jens, you got a lean here?
Oh, yeah.
He's got a gangster lean.
I'm a Steven Montez fan.
Yeah.
He's from El Paso, Texas. There's not much to do out there besides throw footballs. Plus, Montez won the presidency in Veep, and I'm picking them to cover. In fact, give me Montez and the Buffs to win outright.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Take that to the bank. If you're going to go money line on Colorado, make yourself some real bucks. All right. Josh.
See, here's what's concerning about the Buffaloes is their opponent's win-loss record is 5-17. So they haven't played a soul. But then this begs the question, does USC qualify as a team with a soul? Because they are 3-2. They've won the last 2 weeks by 3 points and 4 points against an okay Washington State team and a pretty underachieving, lifeless Arizona outfit. So they're not terribly impressive themselves. Then when you dig deeper in the numbers, the Buffs averaging 100 more yards than USC. What's up with this T. Martin offense, this Clay Helton offense? Trojans can't move the ball really at all. And then you mentioned Steven Montez. That's a great pick by our guest picker because USC is allowing well over 200 yards passing per game. I think he goes off. I think he picks them apart. And here's something that even makes me feel better. USC 1-4 against the spread this year. Colorado 4-1. I'll take the Buffs.
Ooh, I like that, Coach.
Yeah, USC's burnt me several times. I've given them way too much credit. And for that reason alone, I'm picking Colorado. But also, I think Colorado is honestly just a better team right now. And Montez is one of the main reasons. And I think he's going to sling it around a yard.
All right, yeah. I don't think that as great as USC has been recruiting defensive backs, I still don't think they have anyone who can really, defend Laviska Shenault one-on-one. He's proven to be one of the best receivers in the country, and I think that's going to show up again this week. So I'm also taking the Buffs. That is a clean sweep there, gentlemen. All right, finally, Kansas is on bye, so Rock Chalk, rest in peace at least for the week.
Wait, does Kansas? So what's the spread on BYE?
It's BYE is a 14.5 point favorite on the road at Kansas.
Ooh, that's an interesting pick.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna go with the Jayhawks though.
But those Jayhawks, yeah, they have to play BYE this weekend. So we need to at least have the spirit of the Jayhawks alive. So we're going to welcome back Rutgers to the picks party. Scarlet Knights on the road this weekend. They find themselves 25.5 point dogs at Maryland. Jens, you probably don't, but do you have any strong feelings about this one?
Not really. I mean, I know Rutgers lost by 41. You mentioned Kansas. I think they lost by 41 to Kansas, so that's not great. But Max Rosenboozer, or whatever his name, Bortenschlager. Yeah, he's gone, right?
Rosenbagger.
Rosenboozer. Yeah, so we've got him out for the year. Tickets are actually going for as low as $3 on the secondary market.
Ooh.
So I'm going to say, for some reason, that's a bargain to see Rutgers cover. So
Okay. Josh.
So Rutgers has a real issue. They cannot score the ball to save them their lives. They average just over 16 points per game. So that, when you see a spread that big, one thing you're worried about is, what if the team falls into a couple touchdowns? That doesn't happen with Rutgers. In terms of the 25 points, well, they lost by way more than that to Kansas. They lost by way more than that to Buffalo. They lost by 21 to Illinois. This team is dreadful, and the icing on the cake for me is the last time Maryland lost was to Temple. The very next week, they blew out the Gophers. This game's going to be a rout. Rutgers is not going to even sniff that point spread. I think Maryland wins by about 35 points, if not more.
All right, Coach.
The only reason Rutgers might sniff the point spread is because the first quarter hasn't ended yet. Maryland's going to have it by halftime, and then they're going to put the icing on the cake in the second half. I think Maryland's going to double that spread.
Okay. Wow, you've got Maryland winning then by more than 50.
There's a little hyperbole there, but they're gonna just about double it up.
Vegas should do that. They should double the payouts if you play the double spread.
That would be fascinating.
It's a whole other line of betting. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. You're combining a money line with the spread. I like that.
You would get a lot of action on Rutgers and Kansas.
You would. But would you get? But I guess you'd only get like it would only be to like for the team like that is the favorite in that one, because like you can't double the spread and say Rutgers is going to cover a 51-point spread. Like that's just like they're just at that point. So
yeah, and well, that's what makes it a prop bet.
Okay, I like that. You know, I spent this past weekend with my dad. It was his 70th birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. He's a Rutgers alum. Trying times down there in East Piscataway. And he's given up on Rutgers football, which means I have carte blanche to give up on Rutgers football and just pick against them no matter what. 26 points feels like an awful lot. But my goodness, they are genuinely horrendous. So as much as it pains me to do so, fear the turtle. All
turtle.
Right.
Nice.
The turtle. All right. Well, Josh, any final words for me tonight?
Yeah, we did it again. I cannot believe this, but we buried the lead. We skipped over one of the best SEC games that I've seen in quite a while. Ole Miss heads to Fayetteville, and these two teams are practically the same. Arkansas.
Is that who they're playing?
Yeah, Arkansas putting up 25 points per game. Ole Miss is almost right there at 42. The total yards, Arkansas pretty good, 358. Ole Miss just a tad more, 540. Passing yards, that kind of similar, 350 to 211. But actually, in all seriousness, Ole Miss defense is dog poop. So Arkansas, we like to clown them in this segment, but this is a more manageable game for them, because whenever a team gives up over 500 yards of offense like Ole Miss does each week, you stand at least a puncher's chance. So get it done, Arkansas. Turn our usual joke segment into a celebration segment this Monday night when we do our recap show.
Arkansas, you win, we'll lay off for at least a week.
No, I won't.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it then for us here tonight. So on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in the Music City, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, and our special guest picker sitting right next to me in Nashville, Jens Herman, this is the professor saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.